Yeah. Hello everyone.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning. Welcome to our webinar today. This is Mandy Choi from Odoo APAC, and joining us is Piero, functional consultant of Odoo.
Yep.
Then we're gonna talk about how to deliver a project on time and within budgets today. And our webinar is gonna take 30 minutes and following with 15 minutes Q&A sessions. So starting now, feel free to send us your questions via the YouTube chat box. And let's start.
Yeah, let's go with it. Okay, so as Mandy said, my name is Piero. I work as a functional consultant here at Odoo Limited. And the reason why we wanted to discuss this topic today, how to deliver a project on time and within budget, it's because it's related to how we deliver projects here at Odoo. So we're gonna focus on the Quickstart methodology today, which is one of the success factors of our services department. And I'm gonna try to share with you some tips and tricks both for clients, project managers, and our side integrators, project managers. So what we're gonna do is discuss first the case study. So I'm gonna give you some context of the apps that this company, this successful project covered, the number of users, the country and the industry, and the type of business, so that some in the audience might already relate to their implementation case and find some good tips and tricks that fit perfectly their organization. And we're gonna go factor by factor. Basically, these 4 factors are the 4 key elements of the Quickstart methodology, so it's probably something you've already seen. I'm just gonna decline it in practical terms in this case study. So what we're gonna be talking today about is a company that is active in the audio equipment industry, both B2B and B2C, based in Thailand. And we onboarded 25 users in about 4 months. And I chose this customer case because we could apply the pure Quickstart methodology because of, I would say, primarily a great SPOC. So a great person on the client side that could gather requirements, put them together, analyze them efficiently, do their own training, and get back to me with clear feedbacks. And I think it was the most important factor in driving project success. Standard first, we managed to went live without need for over customization. Our usual 80-20 principle, and go live structured in different phases so that our project was not overburdened with a lot of tasks to do at once and we could progress linearly. So the apps that we implemented were CRM, sales, invoicing, website, e-commerce, point of sale, accounting, project, inventory, purchase, timesheet, studio, and expenses. So it's actually a huge number of apps and users, 25 users in less than 6 months. So that's why I think it really gives the idea of how quick the Quickstart methodology make things. So for the client profile, just to give you more information, it's the typical example of a trading companies. So they buy items locally or overseas. So they face regular price changes. They face custom import duties, so it's a typical trading company that has to pay taxes locally but buys from overseas. So we have multi-currencies. It's only one company, and one major thing in, let's say, the whole inventory flow was landed cost, as probably it is for most trading companies that buy locally or overseas and sell locally or overseas. So we were faced with some of these challenges, but we managed to find standard workarounds. As usual, our clients use different softwares, from spreadsheets to another local ERP, to manage to keep track of their operations. And obviously what it was lacking for them was a unique place where everyone could have access easily and share one simple link, or just tag each other and find the right document quickly and with in a timely manner and ensuring data consistency, which is usually the thing that having more than one software as a solution lacks for, is actually unicity of data. So you don't really have one software that is saying something is like, I don't know, let's say yellow, and another software says something is blue. With one software you have unicity of data, and this is was our customer was lacking in terms of pricing information. As they have regular price changes, it was a challenge to keep everyone on the same page for both sales pricing and suppliers promotions. And workers required constant training on new spreadsheets or new workarounds, email updates, to just keep track of basic information in a trading company, which is what's the pricing of our suppliers. And you can imagine that this is a daily struggle if you're purchasing items from overseas every day. So you need to make sure that people have access to the same source of information, one source of information. So this was, one of our pain points from our customer. And they also wanted to have one unique barcoding system that was integrated with ERP, with deliveries and receipts, which is a pretty, important and basic need for a trading company that is processing deliveries and receipts every day. So before, they had to process the deliveries and the barcode scanning in another software and then copy this data in another software manually. You can imagine how many human mistakes there can be behind there. And this is the thing that we understood from the very beginning it was necessary to reduce, which was human errors. So, as you know, Odoo is designed to be customer-centric. So instead of accounting-centric, which is usually the perspective of traditional ERPs, Odoo still has a very powerful accounting engine that is everywhere, and you can generate accounting documents and accounting traces from any type of document. You can keep track of all your books, but it's not really accounting centric. It's customer centric, so that's why you can retrieve instantly all the sale orders from a specific customers, all the purchase orders from a supplier, all the deliveries you've made from that customer, and you can easily build a relationship you had with that customer or that supplier. And we all know that in the end, business is mostly about relationships, first of all. So that's great, and that was one of the, let's say, selling points for our customers. They were really in love with this perspective that Odoo has compared to more traditional ERPs, and they're excited to be able to have a tool that allows them to improve their relationship with their customer every day, to check what discounts they granted to the customer, and to check how active was the customer during the last period. Also because maybe, I hope you guys can relate to our case. This company trades mostly with B2B. It's big accounts. So it's those type of customers that you really need to pay attention to. You don't really need just to provide, like one sale and just a set of items. You need to provide for a solution. We're talking about audio equipment industry. So we're talking about customers that might be clubs, that might be government venues like stations that have they need a public audio system for announcements. We're talking about theaters, we're talking about concert venues. So we're talking about key accounts, customers that always need upgrades, that always need new speakers, new mixers, solutions, cabling. So for them it was really, really crucial to have one unique place where you can track all the project data, all the sale orders, all the deliveries that were made, all the repair orders. So for instance, we repaired like 10 speakers for you last year, and we're also gonna offer you free maintenance this year. This is all possible thanks to the integration, to the unique integration of all these apps from just the customer form. As simple as that. So just to get more into the core of today's topic, on time and within budget. What does it mean on time? Now, there are a few aspects that you need to take care, you need to include in your kickoff phase, so the beginning of the project. On time means that if you have accounting, you'll be able to start using accounting reports in Odoo within the new fiscal year. This means that we managed to get this agreement to start the implementation in the middle of the fiscal year, to keep it as a dry run until the end of the fiscal year, and to start the new fiscal year with all clean accounting reports. All the configurations were confirmed, the training was done, the key users were prepared to use Odoo to book their invoices, their payments, and all the accounting documents. So this means that we did everything correctly so that the new fiscal year could start in Odoo. This is a crucial point because a lot of companies, in order to accelerate the implementation, they just want to start accounting as soon as possible. That's okay, but probably if you start in the middle of the fiscal year, it's gonna be more of a challenge. So if you are a mid-sized company, you might have an accounting department that can help Odoo project manager to start in the middle of the fiscal year. If you're a small company, you probably don't have an accounting department. Your accounting services are outsourced. So what you're gonna do in this case, most probably start in the middle of the fiscal year, do a dry run, and then reverse all the journal entries and start in the new fiscal year with clean accounting reports. In this case, we have an accounting department, so we just trained them. We prepared the initial balances together, and we were ready to start for the new fiscal year, which was a great success factor in our planning. The users, they were trained before the end of year stock take, which is another crucial moment. Imagine you are a trading company of physical items, right? And obviously one of the reasons why you want to have an ERP is to keep track of your invoices, your payments, and like your deliveries and your stock level. You want to reorder when it's time to reorder. You want to have buffer stocks. So it's really crucial that you keep a daily track of stock movements, of deliveries, of receipts, of how products move in and out of your stock. Now, we all know that companies do not do stock takes every day. It's a time-consuming process. It takes usually a week or even 2 weeks, depending on the size of the stock, can even take more. And you usually have to stop booking deliveries or receipts, and it's something that you do over the weekend. It requires extra work from your warehouse agents, so it's not something you can do every month. It's something that you do at the end of the year, because you most of the time need to know what's the actual value of your stock for fiscal purposes. So this was also taken into account in our kickoff phase in the middle of the year, so that we could get to the end of year stock take, so that everyone was trained already to use the barcoding system, and they could just use Odoo to record the end of year stock take and start the new year with correct inventory data. This was another great success factor, because the customer now can go on a product page, check the quantity, and they know that the quantity is correct, and they can trace every movement of the product. So it really improved their day-to-day business and operations. On a more pragmatic level, at the beginning with the SPOC, and that's why I'm saying I had the luck to work with a great SPOC, we were able to plan our days off, holidays, bank holidays, and critical moments, because the SPOC is also the CEO of the company, so he was busy with some trade fairs in advance. So we had an overview of the next 3 months, and then we kept doing this exercise so that we always knew, okay, you're not going to be available for 2 weeks, or I'm not going to be available for 2 weeks. Let's get the analysis done before that. We're going to prepare some exercises, some to-dos for you guys. You're going to train, you're going to digest the analysis we do, and then you're just going to come up with the feedback, which I'll take, I'll analyze, I'll give you more to-dos. And we always have something to do in the background, even if we can't really connect on a Skype meeting, on a Hangouts. If we have limited access to our emails, we have a list of things that we can do in our spare time during those weeks in which we cannot really talk every day. So that was great. That was very useful to plan in advance. So when starting a project, an implementation project, take it seriously. Try to have an overview of your time. Don't underestimate the time commitment. You will need to dedicate time to Odoo to have a successful implementation. The more time you're able to dedicate in the short term, the less the implementation it will take in the long run. And you always want to think in the long run, especially if you're implementing an ERP that you're going to keep at least for 3-5 years. We hope for 20 years. So that was a critical point of success. On time, why am I mentioning the fourth point, compared figures between the old system and Odoo? Well, because you want to stop paying your old system at some point, but you want to have some time in which you can compare, especially the trial balance between the old system and Odoo, so that you can check, okay, the numbers match. So my people have learned how to use Odoo as efficiently as my old system. And you want this not to be too long, maybe a quarter or even a couple of months, so that you just have the time to switch to the new software and interrupt the old subscription. So this was a critical factor. We knew that the subscription was going to end after 6 months, so we made everything so that we could just switch, compare, and then drop the old software and allow the company, the client, to save money. And then on time, what was the secret to do all of this as we planned it? To set a weekly call and a to-dos routine. We were having 1 day a week with the CEO, so like actually a very busy person, but very knowledgeable. So every call was kind of efficient, We didn't have to wait for other people to get us back with information, or maybe sometimes we had to, but the CEO was already very knowledgeable. And we just said, okay, let's talk every Monday at 2:30, from 2:30 to 3:30. If we need, we're gonna do it another meeting on Thursday and Friday. So we usually give each other 2, 3, 4 days to review what we talked about and do our homework and come up with new questions or new conclusions. So that was a critical factor success, because we knew that on Monday afternoon we were having a call. So we were getting ready for that call, and it was our deadline, kind of a dynamic deadline. And, to get the project going and to get things done, you need a deadline. You need a routine so that you get much more efficient at it, and you need a deadline. This is the first part, on budget, which is also as important and on time, and obviously strictly related. So the custom pack was enough to cover phase 1, which is the core needs. So basically all the apps I mentioned without customizations, without access rights, and things that, were, let's say, not core needs, but like kind of very nice to have. Things that like it would really improve our daily usage of the software. But the core needs were already covered with the pack 1. Plus, it was clarified with the SPOC at the beginning that we could need more time. So the budget was agreed from the very beginning. And as a functional consultant, project manager, it's very important for us to set clear expectation for our customers. So always prefer and expect transparency from consultants. Do not... appreciate that a project manager is being transparent with you, and that if a project manager, or also on the other end, the client is being transparent, you can build trust. And I think trust is probably the most important factor in order to create a healthy working relationship. Advise customers in advance. So do we need to over customize? No. Do we need to have a perfect software that does all the automations available technically? Not really. We need to make the users more aware, more responsible, and there is always a standard workaround in Odoo that we can improve after some time. So it's never a good idea to start customizing. Start using the software first, manual. If after 6 months you'll realize that we spent too much time, that there is a concrete way to improve the software and to save time, then we're going to come up with the cost-benefit analysis. But at the beginning, it's not easy to estimate the cost of an operational workflow in Odoo. So it's better to actually do it in the simplest, most manual way, and then you're going to get a real idea of what's the cost-benefit of a customization. So no customization at the beginning, you deliver on budget. Clear timesheets log. So in order to increase transparency and trust with the SPOC, and all the project history is perfectly accessible, the SPOC can always trace back how we use the time. And obviously this makes it easier if we need to have more support hours. It makes it easier because we can, the SPOC, the customer, can really see what we use the hours for, and only that it was for useful things. So they know that if they need another pack, it's because there is a real reason behind it, and we're not gonna waste their time. Avoid unplanned meetings. Always try to have an agenda and have 1 hour meeting. I remember during a time management training that we had in Belgium that the more time you dedicate to a task, the more time the task will take. So if you plan a meeting of 2 hours, eventually the meeting will take 2 hours. So try to stick to 1 hour meetings. Try to stick to meetings with an agenda. So as a client, be proactive. Send an agenda 2 days before the next meeting to your consultant. That's why it's important to always have a next meeting planned in 3-4 days. After 2 days, you come up with questions. You give time to your consultant to prepare, even to send you the answers before the meeting if you want to anticipate and be proactive. And like this, you're going to save time, you're going to be more efficient, and you're going to stick to 1 hour meetings in which you know exactly what you're going to be talking about. And you're not going to hop from one topic to another without a clear direction. Use online learning to avoid live demos or training. It's not worth most of the time to spend your pack hours to learn something that you can learn with e-learning videos. Plus, Odoo is constantly updating our e-learning videos thanks to marketing's work. So you don't need really to spend your success hours on things that you can learn by yourself as efficiently. So use online e-learning for the SPOC, for key users, and for other users if you want to save up hours on the pack. Avoid tackling issues with custom solution. As I said, standard means no maintenance cost. Standard means that it takes 1 hour to find a workaround, and it takes maybe a few months just to test it out, a little bit of patience and change management practices from the SPOC in order to save money, hours of development and maintenance costs every month. So avoid tackling issues with custom solutions, at least at the beginning, at least in the first 6 months, which is still kind of a trial phase. And then prefer working on configurations and training at the beginning to go live and to have users using the software rather than importing history. You always have the time to import history. You can always have an Excel extract of your old software even if you discontinue your old subscription, and we can always plan in phase 2 to import the history so that you can get back on having the full picture of each customer relationship. But what's more crucial at the beginning is that you change your software and you're changing the way your people are working every day. So focus on how your people are working every day, how to use workflows, how to use configurations. Do not lose too much time in importing all the history at the beginning, because you'll realize that you don't really know it at the beginning, or maybe you need it, but having a new features, it's more important than having the history. So what are the 4 factors? The first factor is, what should a single point of contact be like? A single point of contact should be a super key user. So basically should have a thorough and sound understanding of the business flow and project requirements. That's why we don't always have to include other people in the meetings. Meetings with more people is less efficient meetings. Is people having inconsistent information between each other. It's confusing. So we expect from our SPOC to be knowledgeable about the company, to give us clear information, and this will allow us to give clear solutions and ready solutions. Gathering and working on the to-dos means that the SPOC knows what we need to do for, and means that if we give at the end of each meeting, we usually give some homework to the SPOC, we expect the SPOC to do it. If the SPOC never does it, obviously we know that the project is not going in the right way, and we have to raise a red flag, because if you don't do what you're supposed to do, the project is not going to go forward. In the end, the project success is in the customer's hands, because it's in the customer's hands that we we delegate to the customer the validation of something, because it's the customer's responsibility to tell us, yes, we can work this way, yes, it works for us. So it's important that the SPOC does their own work, have the authority to make decisions. Well, this is obviously a critical point, especially if you want to change some workflows, and it might happen because Odoo is actually implementing. Odoo is a great way to audit your existing processes and to analyze them and ask yourself, is this process really efficient, or could we improve things? Could we make things better, faster? Could we reduce the number of people that are involved in a process? Could we reduce the time it takes or the steps? Yes, we usually can, but we need a SPOC that can make the decision to change things and go into change management. As I said, committed to Odoo 100% and be available for meetings. This means that we suggest that a SPOC should be able to dedicate at least 4 hours a week to the project in order to make it go on quickly enough. If they can give even 1 day of their week, it's even better. Then it depends on the scope, on the complexity of the project. But we should have at least 1 meeting a week to get things going quickly. Becoming an internal expert and training the end users. We train the trainer so that we just transfer the knowledge, and this knowledge, and it's much more sustainable because this knowledge will keep growing in the client's company, because the SPOC is knowledgeable. We share the knowledge. He will be able to give training without paying for more support hours from Odoo, and mostly the knowledge will be sustainable. That's why, as an example, for instance, instead of just doing all the imports for the customer, we usually do the imports with the SPOC, so that the SPOC can learn how to import and can teach other users, especially key users, how to use the import function, so that when it's needed to import new data or update existing data, the users don't need support from Odoo. This makes using an ERP sustainable. If users can use it, and it's not costly to train them constantly. Remember what we said at the beginning. The pain points was workers needed constant training. If you train the SPOC effectively, and if you have effective online documentation and internal documentation, you will not need to train users all the time. And then well supported by key colleagues and different departments. If you have a SPOC that knows the go-to people for each topic, then it's gonna be easy, even if we have to wait for the information to retrieve the information. So this is what a SPOC should be. It's the 6 factors. Now let's see, what are the 6 mistakes that a SPOC should avoid? So usually, we learn by knowing what we have to do, but also what we don't have to do. So obviously the first mistake is not testing, not training. As we said, it's the customer's responsibility to validate what functionalities we should be using, what functionalities are useful or not. So we expect the SPOC to train and test, and to be able to train by themselves as well, to duplicate their database, to install a module if they want, or to install a functionality and test it. Make tests, create transactions, check the journal entries, see what are the values. We expect the SPOC to be independent, because they need to do this, and they need to teach the users how to, learn how to use the software. Discharging the tasks on key users. A typical example, for instance, is our accountant wants the invoice to look like this, and this. But the accountant are usually not the center point of the project. They don't really know the costs. They don't really know how complicated. Sometimes they have like a very rigid view, not accountants in particular, but like people, like they're used to working in a certain way. No, we need the SPOC to take decisions. We need the SPOC to tell us we need the paperwork to look like that, because I've checked and this is actually what we need. Key users will not necessarily think of what's the most cost effective measure and way to improve a process, to improve some paperwork. We need always the critical thinking of the SPOC to filter what the key users want and digest it and give it to us. So the SPOC shouldn't just say, yeah, I'm gonna let you talk with my accountant and you guys do it. No, it should always be the SPOC filter between us and the key users. Procrastinating a go live is a third error. Sometimes SPOCs are just too afraid that the users will make mistakes. Well, if we give them proper training, they're not gonna make mistakes, and most mistakes are actually fixed, and we can just work in trial mode during the first 6 months, and only once everyone is on track we can go live. So it's not a good idea to procrastinate and go live, because you lose the momentum, you lose the spin, and if you lose the spin, it's really gonna be hard to convince people to switch to another ERP. Change management is all about quick wins. It's all about showing to people quickly that we already have good results and that things are improving quickly, so that they get excited and they trust the solution. So go live should be as soon as possible. You cannot really procrastinate it, because most of the time procrastinating is more because of fear of change management than any real reason, factual reason why the software is not working. Fourth mistake, changing priorities last minute. If you're not sure about what you really want from the software, the project will probably fail. So before you start changing ERP, don't just do it because it's kind of cool or you need it. Spend some time. It's really a good opportunity for you to audit your internal process, to evaluate if you're doing things correctly in the most efficient way. So come up with simple priorities. Just try to understand what is costing you a lot of money, and that's the priority. And don't change it, because if you really identify the priority, it's not going to change over 6 months. It's always going to be that main pain point. Stopping implementation after a development is blocked. If you come implementing a project with us, it's going to be with the Quickstart methodology. We go standard first. If you didn't pay attention to the type of services that you were purchasing and you expect us to develop everything, and you're just gonna stop the implementation because you lose trust in our services as we refuse the development. If we refuse the development, it's because it doesn't fall under our standard first 80-20 methodology. So don't really stop the implementation because you're kind of disappointed by that. You should never get to the point that you're disappointed. So always try to understand what you're buying when you buy an Odoo Success Pack or when you go with a partner. Don't just buy. Don't expect that we're gonna develop everything for you, because this is not gonna happen. So just avoid disappointment and avoid development if possible. And sixth mistake, Odoo works differently from other ERPs. Do not try to recreate the previous ERP. It's gonna cost you a lot of money. It's gonna cost you a lot of time, and eventually it's not really gonna make your things more efficient. Probably it's gonna make things less efficient, because there is a reason why Odoo is different and other ERPs are different, So do not do it. If you feel like, please keep this list, and if you feel like you're recreating what you used to do, that means that probably you should improve your change management practices rather than recreating Odoo in another, your old ERP in Odoo. Now, what are the 6 mistakes of what for sponsor? Usually the sponsor is the one pushing for Odoo, and the SPOC is the person in charge, and sometimes it's the same person, maybe the CEO of the company or the chief operation officer, whatever role. Now, what the sponsor shouldn't do is exclude the SPOC in the pre-sales. The SPOC will be the key person in the implementation. It will be the leading person, the leading factor of success. The SPOC should be there during the pre-sales. And it should be a knowledgeable person, about the company and softwares, should be a tech-friendly person so that they can learn Odoo quickly and they can become a trainer for other users. They can learn how to test Odoo on themselves. They can learn how to import. They can learn functional skills and transmit them to the rest of the company. So the sponsor shouldn't get disinterested to the project, should always advise with the SPOC, check what's the status, and also put some kind of, constructive pressure and deadlines, and need to get interested in the results so that the sponsor will also be able to give change management momentum to the project and see that we are achieving quick results and make the whole company move towards the new direction, towards making things more efficient in a new software, more lean, more economic, more convenient. So that's why a mistake that the sponsor shouldn't do is underestimate change management. I would say lots of projects might fail just because it's not the right time for the company. The company is going through restructuring. There is not the right SPOC. It's a tough moment for sales, or I don't know, like the market conditions are not ideal. Maybe sometimes it's not the right time to go for a new ERP. In order to make it economic and effective, you don't want to change ERP every 2-3 years. And once you do, you want to do it for good. So don't underestimate change management. Do it in the right time. Don't rush. And the last big mistake from a sponsor is not clarify the pain points from the beginning. It's like identifying the priorities, right? If you identify the pain points and the priorities from the beginning, you know if you're buying the right ERP, you know if you're buying the right implementation service with Odoo or with the partner, and you're not going to change priorities last minute, which usually costs a lot of money. So once again, if it's an uncertain moment, do not probably start an implementation. Start an implementation when you have things clear in your mind. And when you know we need our company to grow, and Odoo is here to make your company grow faster. And we know that we have to go to that direction. We have to make our B2C channel more effective, or we have to expand our B2B channel, and we need an ERP to do this, and this in order to sustain our company growth. That's the right moment in which you're gonna do it. And you need to make sure to have the right people to change practices. That you have your kind of Odoo champions, Odoo ambassadors in the company. So what's the second factor? 80-20. Well, 80-20 is the usual Pareto principle. It's a simple rule. 80% of the value of the implementation is usually related to 20% of the things that we're gonna do. 20% of the requests or the requirements are usually the most important things, the priorities, the things that will cover 80% of the value. Which means complete doesn't mean complex. Maybe 20% of the requirements are really easy to cover. They already cover most of what the value you need from Odoo. And the data migration, the never-ending debate. Do not, as I said, focus on importing the whole history, like 3 years of accounting entries, unless it's needed for legal purposes. You don't really need past balance sheets or income statements in your ERP. You want to have it, okay, but don't do it in the first 6 months. Focus on importing relevant data in the first 6 months. Customer data, CRM, products, history. Do not really import things that are from 3 years ago, because you don't really need to consult it every day. Leave that for a second phase. So how do we work with the 80-20 rule in practical? You identify the most important features. You target those features in priority in terms of training, import, customization, and analysis, and you do these kind of cycles. You finalize the data migration, and then you're ready to go live with the first key feature or the first phase. So, standard first. As I said, always try to go live as fast as possible from a change management point of view, and in order to really have a quick grasp on how Odoo is fixing your issues. Keep the implementation affordable. Standard means you have videos. Standard means it's covered by our migration service and our support service. So if you have any trouble, bug fixing is on Odoo charge, and you always have support almost 24 hours that answers your tickets. You simplify the business processes, because our standard modules are meant to work integrated and in a linear way. As I said, implementing an ERP, implementing Odoo, once again, is a way to also improve your processes, and we're also here to advise you on that. So instead of over complexity of recreating your old ERP, of doing ups and downs, of creating an extremely complex flow just to keep track of everything. Keep track of less, more value, more linear process, standard Odoo, no customization, cheaper, easier to use, more sustainable in the future. You have to simplify your business. You don't have to over complexify it, if I can say that. I'm not sure. So what's the fourth factor? Go live cycles. What do I mean by go live cycles? You don't go live with everything at once. You go live by phase, by operational workflow, let's say. Pushing back the go live date or fear of changes will not help implementing the software, especially with 25 users and in the case of this customer. And do not over customize. Otherwise, you will have to wait for the customization to be finalized, to be validated, to be tested. It's gonna take a long time. What you have to do is try to go live with different departments at a time, or at least different functional area. And I will give you a practical example. And try to make sure that key users self-practice in order to find out if we miss critical steps. So what does that mean? It's a cycle. So basically what we do is, first of all, for each phase, we have an analysis and feasibility. We have a plan. We have trainings. We have validation of the functionalities that we need for that functional area. We have customization if needed, or import if needed for that phase, and then we go live. What does that mean? Actually, in practical terms, it means that, for instance, the phases are planned during the kickoff phase. So the kickoff is not just a call, it's more the first 2-3 calls to really understand what we're gonna go live first. So for instance, the phase 1 could be, we want to use the CRM pipe for new customers, then we're going to be able to send quotations and post invoices for our customers. And that phase 1, for instance, and you don't still manage your deliveries in Odoo, you just keep like the products in consumable, so you don't have stock on hand issues or stuff like that. And you're already able to create quotations and invoices. So that's a phase 1, for instance. Phase 2, for instance, can be, okay, now we go live with stocks, so we start keeping track of our products. So we start validating deliveries with storable products in Odoo. We start having purchases and landed costs. And then phase 3 can be, for instance, we go live with accounting. So we go live with automated inventory valuation, and we go live with assets with all the accounting features, or we go live with walk-in sales with point of sale. So we started with B2B, then now we go with B2C in Odoo. So this is example of phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, each coming with its own training, with its own import, and with its own customizations if needed. So for instance, in the case of this customer, phase 1 was actually sales purchase, then inventory, because landed costs were crucial for a trading company that buys overseas. Then we had invoicing, no customization, no accounting in phase 1. We have barcoding system so that people could easily track the product movements on a daily basis. And we had an on-site training in Bangkok for 3 days to make sure that everything was ready before the go live. And the access rights part, to make sure that with 25 users, you need to customize access rights usually, so that people can see what they should be able to see. Phase 2 was customizing the paperwork, going live with point of sale, with specific purchase use cases, and with accounting entries and reporting. So those were the phases in order for you to get a concrete example of how you can structure your project so that you have quick results and, make this project a success. Hope I gave you some juicy and useful tips and tricks for today. So now we have some question time.
Yes, thank you for your presentations. And right now, let me check what's the question we got. The first question is, what are your tips on how to pick a great contact?
So, as I said, the SPOC should be definitely a knowledgeable person. I think being a knowledgeable person about company processes and operations makes it easier to analyze those processes and really understand what we need, what type of data we need to track and information. So I think business knowledge is even more important than technical skills. You're not required to have any technical skills, but let's say you should be able to find the person that understands quickly like a new functional thing and that can teach it to other people. So I would say top priorities are business knowledge, technical skills, and time availability. Like the SPOC has to put more time and effort than us actually, because he has to gather to dos. So if you pick a busy SPOC, it's not gonna work.
Okay. Then the next question is also about the sport. Is in short, the sport is also the one that make the description to purchase or do this subscription, is it?
Well, that's what we internally call, like, the sponsor of the project is more the one that is usually negotiating Odoo and picking the SPOC. If I did understand the question correctly.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's more the sponsor.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other
Any
questions?
more questions? Maybe meanwhile, when you are still typing the question to us, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Can you share more experience on on-site project as you told us that you go to a Thailand trip?
Yeah, that was very nice. I had the luck to be hosted by a very, very nice client.
Yeah.
And it's usually something we don't do, because as a Quickstart consultant, we usually try to avoid, as we do like 1 hour meetings on Skype, obviously we try to avoid long business trips, which is very time consuming. In this case, it was useful though, because the first day I was on site, we reviewed everything we've done in one day with the SPOC, CEO, and key users, and this was so useful to gather real-time feedbacks, and maybe some things were still not clear. We clarified them in one day. Second day was for me to fix those things, and at the end of the day to show SPOC and key users, you remember your concerns yesterday, they're fixed. Third day, we gave a training to their Salesforce, about 10 people, and for 4 hours, and 4 hours a training to purchasing and accounting department, to show them, just training to actually end users, to make sure that everyone was on their page with their little bit of workflow. And then we went in the warehouse and we gave a 1 hour or 2 hours training about the barcoding system so that people could easily scan deliveries and receipts. So basically in 3 days we kind of talked to everyone about the software and showed everyone with simple training material and simple presentations on how to use the software. So the on-site was definitely a success. Then after 2 weeks after the on-site, we had some constant follow-up to we had some open points at the end of the on-site, so we followed up on that, and then after that, go live. So it was very useful.
Okay. So it's such a packed trip,
Sorry?
It's like fully packed and you're very busy in this
Yeah,
project.
we were very busy. We didn't lose the time to work, and we also didn't miss the chance to get to know each other and have some fun time together, which is also part of working together. And it creates excitement, definitely.
Yeah, sure. Let me read out the next questions. The next question is from Learn. He or she is asking just a rough idea. What is the cost in terms of the man-day in the case study project, please?
So far it was 115 hours, phase 1 and phase 2.
And how long is it take roughly?
So the question is, for this case study, how many hours it took? Yeah, it's 110 hours. Then the pricing changes from country to country, the price per hour.
Mm-hmm. Then the next questions. The next question is regarding user training, because sometimes at the end when you are planning to go live.
I see. That's why, okay, so the users want something different than the SPOC says they need. Well, that's what I said. Like the SPOC shouldn't discharge these tasks on key users. They should give a feedback. They should gather from the beginning the requirements, but also there is a change management practice. So the SPOC and the sponsor should be able to make sure that users can change their way of working. And if there is no way, like if we need to keep working in the same way because of valid reasons, then the SPOC should know from the very beginning. That's why I'm saying you have to pick the right moment for a project. Sometimes, like in certain situations, if it's the wrong moment, it's just gonna be hard to convince users. If you really wanna, you can't really force users to change a software, or if you wanna like help them, just make the learning process easier. Like break it in smaller parts. Give them short trainings, 1 hour training on how to do this. Then 3 days after, 1 hour training on how to do this. And find some key users, ambassadors, people that are trusted in the company and that are early adopters of Odoo. And this will make training users much easier.
Mm-hmm. And then the next question is how to compare the bootstraps with Odoo with free.
I'm not sure what this question means. If they can rephrase it, thanks.
Okay, then maybe we go to the next question first. How do you handle changing priority in the last minute, and which usually coming from CEO?
Well, we handle it like obviously if it's like really important because it's due to some like sudden market changes, we're just gonna handle it. Standard, obviously, like we're just gonna find a solution in standard so that we don't need to wait for a development or a customization. Maybe with Studio we can make it a little bit more complete, but definitely it's a standard. So if there is a change in priority, for sure I expect the SPOC and the sponsor to accept the standard solution. 2 clicks more, but we have a solution straight away. But as I said, the sponsor shouldn't get disinterested during the project. So if there is a CEO listening now, you have to keep supervising the project from the beginning to the end of the project. You shouldn't leave it there aside because changing priorities last minute, it's never a good idea. And you cannot expect to have the perfect solution if you change priorities last minute. So standard.
Yeah, got it. Then the next question is what are the steps to be taken regarding this matter? I mean, the matter is like phase-by-phase implementation takes some challenge to the accurate date from previous implement.
Well, it's important to have a clear planning of time constraints rather, right? So that's how I start at least. Like when I wanna fix a deadline, I think we can never know how long it will take, but I usually try to give an estimation to the SPOC. It will take between 4 and 6 weeks for phase 1. But it really depends on if we can work every week for let's say we plan to work every week for 4 hours, then we have 2 weeks off because of holidays, because of trade fair, because of other projects, because of our commitments. So we know that if we need 6 weeks, but 2 weeks are off, we will need 8 weeks. Plus we give it some buffer time because maybe sometime the SPOC will not be able to, be there. So let's say between 8 and 10 weeks. So we always give a buffer time, a range, and we get everyone ready for the right timing. Don't never expect like to just have a specific deadline, and always start with constraints. The main constraints are the beginning of the fiscal year and the stock take, the end of year stock take for a trading company. For a service company, it's more, I would say, fiscal year or the beginning of an important project. For a service company, or for a manufacturing company, still fiscal year if they have accounting, or the beginning of an important manufacturing project in which you need to produce finished products every week on a regular basis and you really need an ERP to help you with that, then you should try to make it before. But don't do it too late. Like if the initial conditions of the project are wrong, like you want to go live with everything in 4 weeks, you're probably not gonna manage to do it correctly. So maybe you can just do it and keep the first 6 months as a trial period.
Yeah, hope we are answering your questions and we got more and more questions coming. Then the next one is, can be the sport and sponsor as
Definitely.
one person, and what is the advantage and disadvantage of it?
I would say there are no disadvantages if the SPOC and the sponsor are the same person. It was the case in this case, like it was the CEO of the company which was the sponsor and the SPOC. And so instead of 6 mistakes to avoid, they will have 12 mistakes to avoid, probably. That's the only disadvantage.
Then the next question is, some customer shows example from previous software. As they are using the old system many years successfully, then how can we handle this as Odoo doesn't have the options?
Alright, so the way to handle it is this very important? Is this crucial? You don't want to change that? Odoo standard cannot do it. Ask to the Odoo business advisor to have a pre-sales analysis, if it's possible, or a gap analysis, which is a whole support pack that we use to analyze in what you need and the feasibility. Then if there is a huge development to do, don't do it with us, do it with a partner, so that maybe you're gonna be able to recreate the workflow that you need to keep.
Okay. Let me check the next questions. Hey, I just got a call for 12 months to migrate the e-commerce POS, like for retail express and the home building fulfillment system. Does it sound good from us? I think it's
Well, yeah, it depends, like how many users, how many apps, what type of requirements, what type of developments. But 12 months is like a long time. If the SPOC will dedicate enough time, definitely.
Okay, then the next question is, I have a successful implemented with Odoo 12 with a self-service pack, and I'm thinking to upgrading the latest versions. Is it possible to do it by myself?
So the upgrade to Odoo 13 is now available for our on-premise SH and SaaS customers. So you just need to request for it. Like you just need to submit a ticket, support ticket. You don't really need to do anything yourself. It's gonna be Odoo migration team to do it for you.
Okay. Then the next question is, how to estimate implementation phase, or user doesn't have same level of ability to learn?
As I said, break it into smaller parts. If you break it into smaller parts, it's gonna be easier to teach users how to use it. And how do you say, repetition is the mother of learning, right? So just make it simple and make more trainings if needed to make sure that users will learn. And plus, for this, how to estimate implementation time by number of users, we have a rough estimate. If you go on odoo.com pricing, we have a way to see what's the suggested number of hours that we suggest to use. I don't know, do you think, Mandy, I should show this page or yeah? So I think this can be pretty interesting, like odoo.com/pricing. So these are all the different packs that we have. And if you go in the pricing page of the apps, you'll see that based on the number of users you enter, for instance, here we're gonna say 25 users, then you pick just the right apps that are needed. For instance, this ones, I'm gonna, okay, then we had Studio. Okay, that's pretty much it. And then you have Success Packs by Odoo. And this is the success pack that we suggest for those apps and those users. And that's actually the time it took to cover phase 1. So that's why I said within budget. It was exactly within the suggestion we gave.
Okay, thank you. So, let me check. Is there any questions? Then, if not, right now it's like the end of our presentation. Thanks again for your watching, and especially thanks for our speaker
Thanks, Wendy,
today.
for hosting me.
Then you can always rewatch our webinar on our YouTube channel. So if you like this video, please give us a like on the below. And if you want to watch more sharing from our functional consultants, please follow our YouTube channel. So bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye. Have a good
See
day.
you.